friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from across America and around the world. I greatly appreciate all of you taking the time to join us in live broadcast. It is always a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you to examine, look at all things esoteric and to look into the current events and how prophecy aligns with those things that have been going down around the world. We've been doing a study by study examination of the Illuminati secrets and protocols, which we were going to follow up on today. But Justin is going to be taking a break. He's tired, and for those that know, he is taking care of Ezra, the newest member of our family, and my uh, first grandson, and they are merging their schedules together, and so all of that is wearing upon them, and so they're going to get some rest this evening. God bless all of them, and so I'm going to be covering and reading from the book of Navi, and I will be doing a continuation on the Thracian Chronicles and some of the newest material that we've received in translation, which for those that have been keeping up with the series, I think this is the fourth show now. The last two segments have been exceptional. Um, there was a portion in the last broadcast which was speaking about how the Thracian people were um, and ruled over even Egypt. That was part of the Thracian Empire, which made total sense to me because if you are any at all familiar with the material that has been coming out, there was in 2006 a three-book set called The Thracian Script Decoded that was released by a Dr. Stephen Guide, God bless him and rest his soul, who's no longer with us, and also his brother, Bishop Zavetin Guide, who is still in Bulgaria and works with the modern Thracian church to preserve the teachings and also is working with us to translate them to bringing them forward to the English speaking world. But certainly he is an authority on the origins of this material and where they've come from. And if you do want to know more about the origin um, and examine all of the different manuscripts, Latin and you know different parts and cultures and civilizations that contributed to this knowledge. Listen to the show that I did with the bishop on the origins of the Thracian Chronicles, and you'll get so much more detail from that show as we do go through all of the portions of the manuscripts that make up the chronicle material. And there is also another wide collection of the Thracian epistles, which are not found in English either, which we are going to be receiving translation of that material as well. And it's going to be absolutely mind blowing because there is so much information which we've never had chance to consider. But anyways, what I was speaking about with the last segment, the in the last reading of the book of Navi, was talking about the reason why the Most High had allowed the Egyptian empire to degrade and for famine to persist. And, I think about the world now and the situation that we are in, and it parallels what it was speaking about during those times. And the Most High had made clear in the message as to the reason that he was punishing the world with famine and drought. And, you know, in even here in America right now, there is tremendous drought happening. And probably most people don't even have a clue. Because, like, even in the southwestern part of the United States, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the Glen Canyon Dam, and also the Hoover Dam, they are at record low levels. Following 2 decades of drought, they have now reached what is called dead pool, to where the dams can't even generate electricity because there's not enough water in the dam to flow and create current to feed the cities with the energy that they need to continue normal life and living. And if you look at an aerial view, um, the situation is it's pretty extreme. They are having to continue to move these marinas, and these marinas are, trying to stay in business and trying to cater to all those that are paying all these docking fees, all these houseboats and uh, things, all these other boats that are kept on the lake, and yet the lake is shriveling to such degree that there's no place for them to move to, and at some point they're literally going to be grounded because there's not enough water, uh, and there's no place for them to go. There's stories about all of these um, barrels and boats and motorboats and speedboats, and all these boats that have um, that basically were scuttled and that disappeared under the waves and under the water long time ago. Even the story of this one World War II boat that was 150 feet below the current water level, and now it's above the water line and is almost completely on land. That's how much water has disappeared. But 7 states are dependent upon that water there from the Hoover Dam, and they're having to resort to uh, people not having any lawns. They're also rationing water, and you can't wash your cars. You can't, take a shower once a week or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's extreme rationing. But even then, it's it's crazy because there are farms that are have been sold and leased to countries like Afghanistan, and in these leases, they're guaranteed as much water as they want, and it's not part of the rationing, and so they're exempt. And yet, Americans are suffering and not even able to grow food and water their lawns or even flush their toilets or those kind of things. But anyways, all this is coming to light. Some of these shady dealings and people that have been missing. That there's bodies being found in these barrels at the bottom of the lake that haven't been that have been missing for however many dozens of years. All this stuff is coming to light as these water levels go down, but um, they're really having to decide what to do. And these droughts are not just in the Southwest. A majority of Texas is also suffering drought, and there are many other places in the United States that are also undergoing tremendous, drought. And also, there are going to be limits to the amount of, because of these water rations, the amount of food that can be grown. Um, but anyways, the reason I'm saying this is because in the Thracian Chronicles, the story came forth. The Most High had um, answered the call of one of the Egyptian pharaohs, and he was crying out and asking for the answer as to why his people and the world were suffering at this time. And the Most High told him that because the temples and the in the places of worship, what would be the synagogues in Israel, they were not receiving donations from the people, and they were being neglected, and the priesthood was being neglected. And because they were not receiving donations or kindness from the people, they were then not able to pass those contributions on to those that were in need. In the way that the Most High has established his law, and the way that we as a community and a world and as a race, um, the way that we should take care of each other and those that are the less fortunate among us is through love and charity. And because there was not enough of that happening, the Most High punished everybody. And so the story of how all this went down in the time of, and I forget who the pharaoh was. Um, I think it was Amenhotep or something of that nature. You can review it in the last reading. But anyways, I found that of great interest. It was a very moving story. And it also reminded me of the time that Josiah in the kings of Israel, how he had turned around the reverence of Yahuwah, and how he had reestablished the places of worship and had destroyed uh, all of the places that were set up, the groves and the high places that were utilized in idol worship. And that because he uh, cleaned up this kind of perverted worship in the kingdom and reestablished the worship of the true God and the Godhead, um, that this was what brought on blessing from the Most High. And so we see that a nation's condition and the circumstances of the people and the suffering that the nation must endure because of the situation and the circumstances and the reality that they contribute to. That is the reason. It's not because um, God is in any way trying to punish us, but there is lesson that must be maintained, and there must, things that are part of the law. The Ten Commandments are Dharma laws and Dharma ways of being. And we are commanded to love even our enemies and to provide charity to the orphans and the widows and those that are in need, to honor and to respect our elders, our mothers and our fathers, and to, instead of, lying, cheating, and stealing and oppressing others and getting ahead by, um, at the expense and cost of others, we are to bless each other and one another in whatever ways possible so that the Most High, in doing that, paying it forward, you know, assisting the elderly, those that are in need, people with disabilities, veterans, animals, providing all that charity in a Christian um, manner. That this is what, and this is how God has established blessing. That the more you bless somebody or others, the more in turn you yourself will be blessed. And I think that's, a beautiful way for things to be, to do kindness for kindness sake. And yet this has been forgotten. And because of that, I can see that we are moving into a period where we will suffer in the same way that the people in Egypt did in those times. And it's unfortunate because nobody wants to see anybody else suffer in any manner. I pray for blessing upon all of your lives, for that of yourself and your families, and not even, so that myself or my family or my children are to be blessed. We just want to see everybody do well. And it just so happens that when you bless others, that the Most High blesses you. And then this is how you reap what you sow. And in paying it forward in that manner, we are able to take care of each other. And those that are less fortunate, that do not have enough, in that manner receive enough. And in this way, those that are around us that we know as well, we look out for each other. We take care of each other. We pray for each other. And, even prayer is such a charitable thing to do. And it costs absolutely nothing. There's no expense to it other than focus of your time. just a little time to pray for the benefit of others. And we as a people, as a race, as a nation, as a world, that's the least that we can do for each other and one another. And so my hope is that we remember even the encouragement that my good friend Rob Skiba had made to all of us, even to the people that were at the Take on the World conference, when he invited and asked everybody to pray at 4:44 p.m. daily for each other and one another, that this was the least that we could do, and that in coming together in that way, who knows what kind of miracle we can establish, and what kind of uh, situation we can call for in appealing to the intervention of the Most High for the benefit of everybody in the world, to pray against evil, to pray against the madness of the New World Order and the agenda that, even I remember, 2 years ago, we were all, I think it was 2 years ago, something of that nature, where we had the End Time Mysteries Revealed conference, and we went to the Georgia Guidestones, and we came together then as a group. We held hands in a giant circle, and we prayed against the madness of the New World Order. And we also prayed at that time that the agenda that was written on those stones, that they would be demolished. And here we are, how many years later, and this has happened. The message of um, the Georgia Guidestones, that whoever did it, whatever, even if it was the New World Order that was in some manner behind it, um, I just find it intriguing. And so, anyways, we're gonna continue with um, the Book of Navi after the first break, since we are almost to that particular point. But I just again want to encourage all of you to come together at, and again, I, myself, I also forget, but I'm trying to remember, at least at that time, and even if it's just for a few minutes, 4:44 p.m. Let's remember it in a memorial, in the remembrance for Rob Skiba, who was a truth warrior, and how he inspired and influenced so many people in coming to the truth on so many issues and topics, that most other pastors and preachers and ministers, they wouldn't even touch. And so I know that many of you were fond of Rob in the same manner that I was. And so let's let's do it for him and for each other, for one another. And so, anyways, just a minute or two. Let me check and go ahead and open the chat room as well. And I will be looking on, and if you are not on our and part of the discussion, we do have the live stream and the open chat available at our Zen Garcia YouTube channel, and you can join with everybody else there in discussion. And I will try to check at the breaks, which are at the every 30 minutes, for 3 minutes. I'll try to look in if there's any questions or comments or, something of interest. I'll share it and bring it forth. All right. We'll be right back, everyone.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Anne, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. My name is Brooks Agnew, and I am your host on X Squared Radio every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the past meets the future. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We will dissolve the propaganda of dangerous people with dangerous plans for the planet. We will discuss the latest technologies and challenges for humankind. We will discover the safest place for you to stand when the thinkings and doings of mankind come flying apart, and how you can be one of the people that helps put it back together. Join us.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. Some conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. And indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past. Time elapses and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien grass and react to this way. They're so desperate for.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. And I do pray especially for a lot of the people that are in California and that are struggling with the situation there. It seems that drought has been ongoing for a very long time, and that the wildfires as well. I'm so glad that my children moved out of there years ago. They were located near Sacramento, and I just can't even imagine the town of Paradise was mentioned as well, and I did see a documentary of the infernos, and people having to drive through what just looked like hell, to get out of there and to find um, refuge in other places, but they lost their homes and their dreams. I mean, huge neighborhoods. I just recently saw as well that there was an entire community of these $1 million homes that were just burnt up and destroyed because of a wildfire. And so I can't imagine having to worry about or be concerned every year over that kind of a situation. I mean, because really, how much time do you even have to run and to vacate? And for myself, using a wheelchair, I'm not very quick, and so I doubt I could really even outrun a situation like that. And so I really feel for all of you out there, and we will certainly be praying for you as well. Um, I know my good friend Clark is out there. We have a lot of listeners from California, and so we do pray for all of you and that you can find a remedy to your situation. Because for whatever reason, the powers that be seem to be targeting that area, that they have an agenda for moving the population out and leaving the land barren. No, we of course don't know. We're not privy to that kind of thing. But people that have looked into it, they do speak about these things, and that there is this agenda to have communities abandon those regions and the people to relocate. And who knows if, this is part of the targeting, even with what's going on with the Lake Powell and Lake, as far as the Hoover Dam and the water shortages there in these 7 states. I mean, it's to the point where there's going to have to at some point be mass migration. I mean, how else are you going to cater to a community if they don't have water? You can't live somewhere where there's no water, and you can't, just depend on water being trucked in. That's got to be very expensive. And then, tapping into the groundwater, which I think a lot of these communities are doing. Arizona is really good about this, but still, I mean, the Colorado is the largest source of water for all these states in that particular region, and it is disappearing. And so, what's going to happen? And then it also makes me think of whenever there's emergency situations like this, the feds are always going to use that opportunity. The way that the New World Order works is order out of chaos. And the kind of order that they establish is never for the benefit of the people, but always for the benefit of those, running the legislation and the government that establishes protocols and sets up measures to usually punish the people. And because it's always blamed. everything's blamed on humanity. And even though the scriptures tell us that at the end of days that it's going to become so dry, the land is going to become cracked and like iron. And you see this already, like the water, and the levels, the lakes, that there's cracks where the fish have tried to get their last breath. It's sad for all these fish that are dying out, that are being caught in these pools, and these pools just drying out, and huge fish too. I mean, um, but it's unfortunate, and I have been keeping up with this situation there in the Southwest, and it's crazy because the people that are reporting on it, they're citizen reporters. They're just people that have YouTube channels, and they weren't even really, that's not what their channels were about at all. But because of the crisis, and because nobody is speaking about it, and because the people that are living there, the governments, and especially the people that are selling and buying the real estate, none of this is being talked about at all. And there's this real estate boom where the prices of land everywhere, even here in Georgia, are skyrocketing. And people are unable to afford rent in many of the regions of the United States now. There's huge homeless populations popping up all over. I just recently saw a video about Oakland, California, and oh my God, that is like a third world nation out there. I mean, it is so sad what has happened over the last few years. They said the rent has been increased from $1,000 to $3,000, and because of that, and the whole COVID situation, and people losing their jobs, and that there's huge communities of people that um, you would not think would be part of the homeless community. People that have jobs, that are working, um, but they just have no place to live, and they're living in RVs and tents and makeshift situations, and there's all this trash, and um, it's just it's crazy. I mean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Seattle is dying, or look up the homeless situation in Oakland. You would not believe that this is going on here in America. And to me, it's a symptom, an indication of, like I said, the loss of charity. I mean, because the government is not even providing affordable housing. And the people that are coming in and buying up property as investment, and that are increasing rent to the point where others can't afford to live. It's a sad situation. I mean, there's people that are being given, these Section 8 vouchers in different areas and parts of America that can't even use them because there's no housing which they can afford with their vouchers. And it took them years to, in their situation, to even receive the blessing of having such opportunity. Just an unfortunate situation. And so, again, I pray for all of the people out there that are not able to find safe and secure housing, that are with their children and they're living in their vehicles or living in RVs, or they're just trying to make it. They're just trying to make it day to day, and there's no place for them to go because neighborhoods don't want them to park in their communities. Um, and unfortunately, they're being treated like criminals. I mean, it's crazy because in certain cities and certain states, they don't even allow you to help the homeless, which is so crazy. But you're not able to. Uh, that the homeless are basically treated like criminals. It's unfortunate because anybody, I mean, there's so many people that are in this crisis situation and that are living paycheck to paycheck or living, you know, one emergency off from being in such predicament. And yet they have no idea where to go to get help. And then, we have this whole community of children um, that don't know how to keep jobs, don't know how to raise themselves, and that seemingly will never leave the shelter of their parents' homes. They don't know how to do anything other than play video games. It's crazy. But that's the reality for a lot of people out there. And so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what is the solution for people living like that? But again, the least we can do is pray. So we'll do that. But let me go ahead and get into this book of Navi because I am rambling and I want to be productive with this show, with this time, especially since I've, you know, I do need to get these readings out there, and I do need to catch up with uh, bringing forward a lot of these ancient manuscripts, so that you'll have them, you'll have access to them, and you can consider them in your study of the ancient manuscripts. So we will continue from the book of Navi. When they expanded much and multiplied among the nations there, they founded large kingdoms, among which the most glorious were in Caphtor, the island of Crete, in Getusia and Asia Minor. In Caphtor was reigning the great Sev, who was familiar among all with Uzer. He was the first one to conquer and to rule the tribes of Achaia. They paid him annual taxes in gold and in young men for the army and in beautiful virgins for the palace's harem. His name was fearful all over that land, and there is none who can oppose his great power. He built a big city in Caphtor, and he named it like his son, Consusi, but the Danians call it Gnosus. When his son Consusi came to power, he built a palace, like which there is none in the world except in Caphtor, because the palace of Consusi was spread out on almost the whole city, and it had hundreds of royal halls, rooms, corridors, and warehouses, and one could only find his way with the help of a map or a sketch. The name of Kannusi was famous to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south, because of his splendor palace and the wonderful city, and because of the great riches and abundance of his kingdom. The ships of Kannusi sailed in all directions and were bringing expensive goods from Egypt and Thracia to Asia Minor, even to Ur and Chaldea, and to all places of the Green Sea, the Mediterranean. When he married a princess from the country of Emi, Egypt, she gave birth to a son who was named Minos Hetep, Minos Emir, which means war is peace, or peace is achieved through war. Because only when he conquered the Achaeans, who loved war, he was able to give peace to his people. When he reigned on his father's throne, King Minos Hetep reigned over Thracia, Thrace, and Egypt in the capital, Tyre, and united again the twin lands, Hem, Thrace, and Hemi, Egypt. And the nations around revered and trembled at his power, wealth, and glory. He was the first king to introduce joint reign, letting his son, Sanare, to sit with him on the throne. And when he was governing in Caphtor in Crete, in Thracia, Thrace, his son replaced him in Tyre in Egypt. When he was governing Tyre in Egypt, his son replaced him in Consusi, Gnosis, in Caphtor. In this way, he was firmly in control of both lands of Hemus, Thrace, and Hemi, Egypt. All nations around paid him taxes as they paid to his fathers, in thousands of talents of gold, and in young men for the army, and in young virgins for the palace in Caphtor, where all the riches in the world were converging. When his third son, Nebtare, was killed in a conspiracy plot by the Athenians, whose name in their Danian language is translated Androgeia, the Thracian king in Caphtor, Minos Hetep, ended the peace and began a long and bloody war with the inhabitants of Athena. Chapter 10. And there was a noble young man among the Danaans whose name was Eg. He was trained in martial arts and approved in bravery and nobility, a leader among the noble families in the city of Athena. Now, he was captured and in captivity under the Thracian leader, Orest. He spent 7 years of his life in the Rhodopopi mountains in Thracia, among the servants of Meroesis, the priest of the god Dionysus in Pere. He was precepted and given over to the training of the Orphic initiation by the priest, and he was appointed to be a servant of the librarian in the temple. Soon he advanced in knowledge and the traditions of the priests of god Dionysus, to a point that he accepted this faith and dedicated himself to an everyday service to God in his temple, and he became an adept and received the divine nature. After he finished his training and his initiation in Pere, he was released to go back home in Athena, where he opened a holy house of Dionysus. There he introduced the faith to the noble people among the residents of Athena. The teaching of Orpheus for the god of Thracia, Isis, spread out among many of the Achaeans. The ones dedicated to this teaching called themselves noble Elioni, meaning the ones who know God. The long-term war between the Thracians and the new-coming Athenians continued, including brave men among the noble families. In the city of Athena, more and more citizens of Athena and the surrounding areas had to fight in the king's army. Soon there was not a home which didn't mourn after a son or a daughter killed in the bloody battles with the Thracian detachments. E.g. was grieving so much while watching the suffering of his fellow citizens, and he was wondering how he can achieve peace between the Thracians and the Danaans, because many of the citizens of Athena believed in the same god, Dionysus. One day, while sitting in the holy house of Dionysus, in the 10th hour of the day, E.G. heard a voice which was calling his name. E.G., E.G., and thinking that this might be a messenger of the Lord, he turned and said, "Here I am, Lord, speak." And the Lord spoke to E.G., saying, "It is not my will that these two very noble nations kill each other, because I assigned a holy mission to each of them, and a day will come when they will both serve me, from the small to the large. That's why I instruct you to lead your people towards peace with Thracia, dwelling in these lands since ancient times. This way I will accept you to dwell with them on this holy land, and I will send you a helper, your firstborn son, who will be born from your wife, and he will achieve peace with the nation of Hem, and you will live in the land. In the next year, to the minister of the holy house of Dionysus in Athena, to E.G. was born a son, and he named him Tezi, in honor of the words spoken to him by the Lord. And he said, "This son of mine will fulfill the command of God Dionysus for a peace between our two nations." The boy was educated in the holy house built by E.G., which they called the temple of God Dionysus. When the boy grew up and matured, he was dedicated by his father to a priest, to the Thracian god among the noble Elianoi. The faith in God Dionysus reached through the Thracians of Hem and Hemi to the surrounding tribes and nations. The word of the Dion of Thracia, the god of Thrace, spread out through the sea nations to Bactria and India. When Tezi turned 17 years of age, he appeared before King Minos Hetep as a messenger from the city of Athena for peace. The king didn't want to receive him, and he left him to stay with the servants in the palace until he had free time to listen to him. We'll be right back for a second now.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
Who would have thought this could have happened? I'll tell you, here's the story. If it's bad, it'll be front page news in the newspapers. If it's great, they won't even cover it. Now, if it's bad, I say it's fake.
And Saki told me so, so it must be true.
If it's good, I say,
I told you again, I told you.
Trump.
what the hell is he talking about?
I don't know. Don't laugh. You're now canceled.
We are a laughing stock all over the world. If you say election fraud, you get canceled.
The proof that Joe Biden hasn't lost it was that Vladimir Putin said that he seemed very sharp.
How about if I take a cognitive test?
There's a woman's man come on TV, but for me it was easy.
Law and order. We want law and order. We demand law and order. We don't want people shot and killed.
Clearly.
Now, if it's bad, I say it's fake.
And Saki told me so, so it must be true.
If it's good, I say,
I told you again, I told you.
You don't need your fully semi-automatic 40-back shot clip, man. Am I right?
in other words, the entire system was rigged.
Yeah.
Every day more people are realizing that we were right.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Crooked Hillary Clinton is the most angry person in the United States.
Yeah.
You know why? She said, why the hell didn't you do that for me? I could have been somebody.
There's a lot of enthusiasm for Joe Biden. He's the most popular president ever. He's significantly more popular than Barack Obama was in 08. Am I right? Clearly.
Now, if it's bad, I say it's fake.
And Saki told me so, so it must be true.
If it's good, I say,
I told you again, I told you.
Now listen, if you have not subscribed to a YouTube channel, do it right now. Do it today. And all you have to do is click the big red subscribe button.
You must unite what has been set aside.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. Just wanted to give a real quick shout out to all those that are in the chat room, in the immediate scroll. Hebrew Hawaiian, Brick, Stevie, to Stephanie, Thaddeus, Jamali, Paladin, Caroline, Mark Stump, Mindy Ash, Adrian from Oz, Tammy George, of course, our great moderator. Again, happy birthday to you, sister. Gypsy Lil, Maryland, and so many others. We appreciate all of you, and I thank you. Ski the Hebo, and I appreciate you having discourse and sharing with each other and one another. Gene, And yes, let's all pray for each other again, and as much as we can. Uh, big, big web burrito. Hello, brother. And yeah, let me go ahead and continue because, like I said, I want to get as much of this reading as I can done because I still have two other books of the Thracian Chronicles that I want to share with you. The Acts of the Apostle Andrew, written from the uh, perspective of Maximilia, who was a woman that followed the apostle, and also um, the Book of Ari, which Ari is a word for the wisdom keepers, and it is also a manuscript about the Thracian peoples and the truth that was passed down and preserved by them. So let us continue. The king didn't want to receive him, and he left him to stay with the servants in the palace until he had free time to listen to him. He did that to humiliate and to crush the boy, so he can agree on more difficult and unprofitable conditions to achieve peace. While he was prostrate on his mat, the priest Tezi, who was an expert in all the mysteries, entered a frenzy of the spirit, and he was able to break through in the holy temple of the city. He was seeking to find out what kind of spiritual power was dominating in the city and the kingdom of Kenosis. He was able to see in the darkness of the temple, and here in front of him appeared a creature with unlimited strength and power, whose appearance made him tremble. The appearance of the creature was truly frightening, and it looked like he had the head of a huge bull, the body of a giant, with human forms, roaring like an enraged lion who's chasing his prey. And he saw a beautiful virgin coming close. She patted the terrifying creature with a gentle smile, and he calmed down in her presence. He followed her like a submissive pet. She called his name with tenderness, and he answered her by speaking her name. Tezi heard their names in the ancient speech, because this was a vision in the spiritual places in the city. Tezi continued, and unnoticed he passed them. He entered through the curtain in the holy place of the temple, and here the voice of the One was speaking to him. Tezi, son of Iji, you who served me in Athena, here you saw the power of the spirit who rules the thoughts of the king of this city. And what you saw is the vengeful, ferocious spirit of war. King Minosetep doesn't hear the voice of God anymore because his heart is possessed by the desire of revenge because of his grief after the loss of his son. But I, the Dion of Thracia, reveal the secret of this angel to you. This angel is sowing punishment and death among the nations. And I showed you how you can overcome him, because the one who has power over him is the priestess of this temple. And today you learned her name. She is your weapon with which you will win and establish peace. Be bold. I am with you, and you will return to your home as a conqueror. And when Tezi came back to his senses from the vision, he was laying in his bed. He was deeply moved from what he had just learned, and he was looking for a chance to make the virgin he saw his ally, because he understood that this was the daughter of the king herself, and she was a priestess in the temple of Dionysus, in the palace of Knossos. And he was fascinated by the beauty of the princess, and he felt a strong longing to meet her in flesh, face to face, so he can enjoy her beauty, if truly her physical appearance reflected what he saw in the spirit. And because he was well informed in all callings, in the visible and the invisible, measurements in the world, the young priest called the daughter of King Minos Hetep by her true name, and he appeared in her dream. He impressed her with his brilliance and beauty of a great king who is coming to ask for her hand in marriage. And so she fell in love with him, and her heart was full of desire for the young prince. When she got up in the morning, she told her maid of the wonderful dream she had. The maid informed her that verily a messenger came to the king with unknown purpose, and he was placed to stay with the palace's servants. Her curiosity and the charm from her dream prevailed. The princess ordered her servants to organize a meeting with the young Tezi, but kept it a secret from her father. Whether as a result of the supernatural dream or as a result of the natural secret laws of love, the two young people formed a close friendship, almost at first sight. And only after a few days spent in the palace, Tezi knew that he had a valuable ally in the face of the princess. Re Diona, because this was the sacred name of the priestess of Re Dion in Kaftor, in the island of Crete. While they were sharing their innermost thoughts and feelings, Tezi told Aridiona about the purpose of his mission and about the command of God Dionysus to reconcile the people of Knossos and Athena. On the 17th day of his stay in Knossos, he was overcome by tiredness and slept till around the 10th hour of the day, and he saw a significant vision in his dream. He met again the terrifying spirit with the head of a bull and a body of a man, the same one he saw in his vision in the beginning of his visit in the palace. But this time, Aridiona was not giving a pat to the bull man, but to him, Tezi, and she was talking to him words of love and friendship. She looked at his eyes, and there his heart was burning with desire for her. She placed in his hand a double-edged sword and a yarn ball, and she said to him, "Enter with this yarn in the underground dark chambers of the palace and unwind it along your way so that you can survive on your way back and come back home. My father is a strict man, and he can ruin you in the maze of his secret thoughts. With my sword, which you are holding in your hand, pierce the heart of the Minotaur who rules the souls of the people in this city with darkness and insanity, who leads them always towards wars and bloodshed. This way you can kill him and give the people everlasting peace." And so he did in his dream. And when he saw the Minotaur dead on his feet, Tezi woke up, wondering about the meaning of what he saw. And while he was in deep thoughts about what he saw, Tezi understood that he needed to stay away from involving himself in politics and intertwining in the plans of negotiations with King Minos Hetep, so as to avoid falling into the impassable maze from which there is no way out. He was wondering about the nature of the weapon which Aridiona placed in his hands, and then he remembered the words of Dionysus. She is your weapon. On the next day, the king, Minos Hetep, invited Tezi to an audience in the throne hall and gave him great honor, ordering a chair to be brought for him to sit next to his throne in his presence. This act astonished all the courtiers present. After he welcomed him, the king told him that his daughter had already explained about Tezi and the purpose of his mission in Kenosu to bring peace. And as he spoke kindly to him, like to a son, sincerity and goodwill flashed in his eyes, and there wasn't a hint of anger or warlikeness, no feeling of hatred or desire for revenge. And then Tezi realized that the sword of Ariadiona had struck the spirit of the Minotaur, and the king of Thracia was freed from the influence of the spirit of warfare, hatred, and thirst for revenge. And while speaking about his son who had died at the hands of a conspirator, the king wept and said that his life had shown him that death could not be redeemed by death, or suffering redeemed by suffering, and that war only brings more evil to the people, and did not correct evil done in the past. Therefore, after he praised him for his nobility and bravery to come as the protector of his people, the king instructed him to go back to his city in peace. King Minos Hetep set that the blood tax from boys and girls which the citizens of Athena had to pay every year is forgiven, and that from now on the boys and the girls in the city of Athena can freely come and go to Kenosis whenever they are willing. And let them learn how to read and write, the craft of art, knowledge, and to serve God, because Tezi is a confirmation that his people are a worthy people. And also to develop friendship with the young boys and the girls in the palace, and when they fall in love, to become husbands and wives according to the traditions of both nations. And let it be peace in the land, because there is place for everyone under the sun of Dionysus. The king said this in conclusion, and he dismissed the audience. What a great power over her father's heart was holding in her hands a favorite daughter. Chapter 11. The brother of Minos Hetep was called Radamat, meaning God the Word gives the laws. And he wrote the laws of the Thracian kingdom in Kaftor, Crete. And their youngest brother, Repitos, opposed his brothers and went far away in Asia Minor. He conquered the Hurrian people and established his dynasty and capital at Getosha, which became a large kingdom of Geti in Asia Minor. When the son of Sarapitos, Getoshi Il, took the throne of his father, he gathered a large army and he swiped the Hurrians in direction to Kilikia, and he conquered all Anatolia and spread out his kingdom, even to Byblos. There was no power which could stop him in all the surrounding nations. Even the Akkadians and Assyrians trembled at his name. His son, Mureshek, was even more famous than his father because he expanded the kingdom of Geti, even to the great river Euphrates. He conquered the sons of Hammurabi, entered Babylon as a conqueror, and took away in captivity the gods of the Babylonians, even Marduk, whose statue he took out headless from the temple. A herald walked in front of the procession and claimed aloud, "So will the god of the Geti, Dionysus, do to all the gods of the nations, because he is Lord of the lords and King of kings, and his son Moreshek and all his sons after that will reign over you forever." That was a great prophecy about the Thracian Geti and their descendants, that they won't be short of kings and dynasties from their loins all over the earth forever. The Geti of the sons of Mureshek were allies to their brothers reigning in Knossos, in Kaftor, the island of Crete, and to their brothers reigning as kings shepherds, the Hyksos, in Avaris, in Tiva, Egypt. And all of them were taking in marriage princesses for their princes, and among each other in this way they lived in peace for a long time. And then other kings came to Egypt, and they expelled the king's shepherds from there. The king's shepherds went to the kings of the Geti in Kaftor and in Gatosha. And from there they began wars against the Egyptians, and neither one overpowered the other, but they couldn't return to Egypt anymore. They built a great city in Asia Minor and named it Tyre in honor of the first Thracian king, Tyre. Soon the city, Tyroia, or Troy, became famous in the whole world due to the wise governance of the kings there, and due to the great riches that flowed into it, because the city was on the crossroad between the nations. In the city Tyroia, people from all sea nations, such as Ponta, Cyclades, Kaftor, Buto, Elephanta, and Biblios, such as cities of the Green Sea, came to trade their goods. Tyre, sitting at the entrance of the sea, which was doing trades with the nations from many islands, and your borders are in the middle of the sea. Those who had built you made perfect your beauty. They made all the boards of your ships from the pine trees in Shinar, and took cedar from Lebanon to make the decks of your ships. They made your oars from Vasen oaks, your seats from ivory and beech from the Chinese islands. Your sails are from embroidered linen from Egypt, so you can use them for banners blue and purple from the islands of Elisa are the fabrics of your canopy. The citizens of Sidon and Arvad are your rowers, and your wise men are your helm. The elders of Gaval and the helmsmen put resin on your ships. All sea ships and the sailors in them are yours to do your trade. The Persians, the Lydians, in the Lydians are your mercenaries and your men of war. They lift their shields and helmets to honor your splendor. Then men from Aradan are on your walls with their armies. The men from Adgadmata are on your towers, and they are hanging their shields on your walls. They made your beauty perfect. Tarsus trades with you in abundance of all riches. They exchange silver, iron, tin, and lead for your goods. Yavan, Tuval, and Mosul trade with you, and for your goods they will exchange human souls and copper vessels. From the home of Togorm, they trade for your goods, horses, military horses, and donkeys. The men from Dedan also trade with you, and the trade of many islands is in your hand. They bring to exchange ivory and ebony. Syrian trades with you for your many products and exchanges merchandise for your purple fabrics, embroideries, linen, corals, and rubies. Damascus trades with you for your many goods, and with an abundance of every wealth, with wine and white wool. Vadan and Yavan trade yarn for your merchandise. Wrought iron and fragrances are among your works. Dedan trades with you for expensive fabrics and chariots. Arabia and all nobles of cedar are merchants with you, and they may trade with your lambs, sheep, and goats. The merchants of Sheva and Ramah trade with you and are to exchange for your goods any high quality fragrances, any precious stones, and gold. Hadran, Hene, and Eden, the merchants of Shiva, Asur, and Hilmad, trade with you. They do it with well selected goods, with piles of blue embroidery. All right, we'll be fine back for final segment in just a few minutes.
Fail big. That's right. Fail big. You only live once. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances professionally. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test, was 9 dots. And you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. So don't be afraid to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big.
It's amazing how people have been raving about Aya Life all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with Aya Life, it's a 99% pure CBD oil, but the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with Aya Life. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ayalife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ayalife.com, AYA-life.com.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Sargent from Strange World, broadcasting live every day to the end of the world in film. It's basically doomsday with a silver lining. With the audience as my co-host, we take an optimistic approach to all things conspiracy and promote confidence, hope, and humor whenever possible. If there's a topic you want us to cover or a guest you would like to see interviewed, please email me at msargent23@comcast.net. So please join me and tell your friends about Truth Frequency Radio, the leader in real radio programming, bringing you quality, cutting-edge broadcasts from around the world.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for our final segment, and you are welcome, Hebrew Hawaiian. I just appreciate that all of you appreciate the Thracian material, and that, you know, so many of you also appreciate the study of the extra biblical material. Also, I will report that I am on the final, I believe to be the final proofread of what is the book on the Holy Spirit being the feminine aspect of the Godhead. And I'm thrilled really to get it out to all of you. There's a great bit of information within it, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it changes the opinion, or at least opens up the consideration that, there is a feminine aspect to the Godhead, which in my mind is common sense, really. I mean, how do you deny that within the Godhead there has to be an image and representation of the Holy Mother, and of which women and Eve and all the matriarchs of every generation were made as a representation of? It is still just bizarre to me that people are fighting and contesting and opposing this teaching, and they are declaring and also standing firm in their belief that all the figures of the Godhead are male in aspect, when of course women are the ones that bring forth the children. And in the design of humanity and procreation, how do you exclude women? I mean, how can there not be women in the hierarchy of the Godhead? It's just absolutely bizarre. Because, if the Godhead is homosexual and meaning all male, how does it replicate itself? And why would humanity be made male and female if it wasn't first reflected in the Godhead? It's bizarre. It's bizarre, but this is the argument and the opinion of all those that believe me to be wrong. And so finally, I give thanks to the Most High as well that I had this chance to bring this book forth, because there was a time that I really didn't even think that I had the time to do so. So I'm fully grateful to be able to stand in defense of the mother and all mothers and all women and and sisters and daughters everywhere. Excuse me, you are important. You are an equal part of the pre-existing Godhead. You are co-equals to the creators that manifest all things. And so realize this. Know your power, know your worth. And I would hope that, as people also, men, embrace this teaching, that they will learn from it and recognize the co-creative and equal status of women in not only the hierarchy of the Godhead, but in the creation. That men and women are all equal. We were made to support and to fulfill each other, that a man and a woman coming together, that, it forms one flesh, which is a recreation of the wholeness that is also found in the unity of the Godhead. Male and female created they, them. All right, so let's continue. Verse 27, and I do believe this is chapter 11 of the book of Navi. Wrought iron and fragrances are among your works. Dedan trades with you for expensive fabrics and chariots. Arabia and all nobles of cedar are merchants with you, and they trade with you lambs, sheep, and goats. The merchants of Shiva and Rama trade with you and are to exchange for your goods any high quality fragrances, any precious stones, and gold. Yes, Hawaiian Hebrew, that does absolutely remind me of, the land of Ophir, and also how it is that the Thracian kingdom and empire, they were trading with everybody worldwide. There was a huge trade established across all the regions of the world, and it was facilitated here according to the kings of Thrace. All right, continuing. Haran, Heni, and Eden, the merchants of Shiva, Asur and Hilmad trade with you. They do it with well-selected goods, with piles of blue embroidery, chests with rich garments, tied with ropes and made from cedar wood. Endless is the number of your merchants and the neat appearances of your goods. The ships of Tarsus are going around to trade, and you are filled with wealth and become the head among the seas in glory. And now, when you have all that, to whom do you owe gratitude for your abundance? And how are you going to keep it? Because all the surrounding nations want what you have, and they are gathering their armies to march against you. Chapter 12. Tyre, Troy, was a splendid city, and the kings there were from the best in the world of its kind. Kings from the dynasties of Egypt, Gatosha and Kaftor. Kings of the kings and lords of the lords. But the greatest among them was King Rhesos, meaning God, Re, shepherd. And I want you to also know that Re, Yah, is the Holy Spirit, the feminine aspect of the Godhead in the Thracian Chronicles. And so where you see that word Re, it is a respect to her as well. But the greatest among them was King Rhesos, meaning God Re, shepherd, who was from the house of the Edenai in Strimon, son of King Ioni, son of Terah, son of Teri, who would have killed Priam, the king of Tyroia, Yilon, but spared his life and took the throne instead of him, and made him his vizier. King Rhesos soon became the richest ruler in all of Thracia, Asia Minor, and Egypt. He was so proud that he proclaimed himself a god. He was demanding sacrifices in his temple in Tyroia as it should be done for God, the word Re, and the great Dion of Thracia, the son Isus. And it was written by the king's scribes that King Rhesos was considered the son of the shepherd God, God the Father, and of the godly muse, Ev Turpa, God born from a god, and king over the kings in the world. He was sitting in his temple in Tyre. His throne was on the top of the chariot of gods made of gold, guided by the horses of the gods, and strong as the mighty Pegasus himself. He was dressed in godly armor made of gold and silver, like Helios himself in his eternal chariot. In the 7th hour of the day, every one of his citizens came to the temple to bow down to him as if he was the face of the one and only God, and to offer him sacrificial gifts according to the writings of the law. If a foreigner ruler came, he had to take his shoes off, to wash his hands and feet, and to kneel before Resos, to kiss his feet and give him gifts. If the foreigner didn't do this, he was the one offered as a blood sacrifice to Resos himself. Resos was always guarded by 12 from the most noble and brave warriors of Thracia, who were called the angels of God and were considered immortal by everybody. When he entered a battle with his enemies, he was fearless, and he fought like a demon. There was nobody worthy who could resist his spear. His 12 warrior angels were thought of the same. His whole retinue descended on the enemy like a hurricane, and with the thunders of heaven struck every enemy. All he did was such an evil before the Lord God of the forces, and God laughed at his pride, despising him like an eagle mocks a worm trying to fly. A word came from the Lord to the prophet in Delphi, and turned to him, saying, Lord God, the true Dion of Thracia himself, He says this, because your heart is lifted up and you said, I am a God. I sit on God's seat in the midst of the seas, yet you are a man, not God, even when you set your heart as the heart of God, and you believe that you have gained all the wealth for yourself with your own wisdom and understanding, gold and silver into your treasures, that you have gained your wealth with your great godly wisdom, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Therefore, this says the Lord God, because you have set your heart as the heart of God, behold, therefore, I will bring strangers upon you, the terrible of the nations, and they will draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom. Your works are of men's hands, not God's hands, and they will defile your brightness. They will bring you down to the pit, and you will die the death of the ones who are slain in the midst of the seas. Then will you tell the one that slayed you, I am God? But in the hand of the one that slayed you, you are a man and not God. You will die by the hands of strangers, by the hands of strangers, the death of a blasphemer. For I have spoken, said the Lord God Almighty, because you sealed up the sum full of wisdom. And perfect in beauty, you set yourself in the temple like you were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardinia, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and the gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and your pipes glorified you day and night, for you were not created like everyone else, but you presented yourself as an anointed and outshining cherub. You did not value and acknowledge that I set you upon the holy mountain to walk dressed in gold and in splendor in the midst of the stones of fire for my glory and not for yours. by the multitudes of your merchandise. They have filled the midst of you with violence, and you committed a deadly sin. Therefore, I will cast you as a profane out of the mountain of God, and will destroy you from the midst of the stones of fire. O self-proclaimed covering cherub, your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom because of your brightness. Therefore, in this hour, I am giving you to your enemies. I will cast you to the ground. I lay you before kings, that they may look at you to learn a lesson forever and ever. You have defiled my sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities, by the iniquity of your trade, and by your blasphemous lies. Therefore, I brought forth a fire from the midst of you, which devours you, and I brought you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that watch you. All they that know you among the tribes shall be astonished because of you. You will be a terror for everyone, and never shall you be any more. And your rower who led you to the great waters in the great city Tyre will lament, but not for you, but for your city, because today the eastern wind destroyed it in the midst of the seas. O city Tyre, your wealth and merchandise, your trade and sailors, the helmsmen who put resin on the ships, the traders of goods, and all military men who dwelt in you, with all the multitudes in you, they all will collapse in the midst of the sea in the day of your destruction. The bridgeheads will shake from the voice and the screaming of your noble men. All the helmsmen and sailors will disembark the ships. They will stand on the ground and yell with a loud voice over you. They will scream bitterly and will cover themselves with soil and throw ash on their bodies. They will turn bald because of you and will cover themselves with sackcloth. Then they will weep for you with terror in their souls and with a bitter lamentation. In their weeping, they will cry for you, and crying for you, they will say, who was like Troia, which perished in the midst of the sea? When your goods were going around the seas, you fed multiple tribes with your riches and trades, and you enriched the earthly kings. Now, when you are destroyed in the sea, in the deep of the waters, your trade and your multitudes fall in the midst of you. All the cities of the islands were shocked by you, and their kings were terrified. Their faces turned pale from fear. The merchants among the tribes whistled because of you. Terror you became, and never shall you be again. When they heard about the prophecy of the oracle in Delphi, Achaean men and the kings of their cities made a plot against King Rhesos and the great city of Tyre, because they understood that the time for its desolation had come, and the Lord God would hand it over to them. The Achaean king Agamemnon led a large army against Tyre, Troy, and he surrounded the city everywhere by land and with as many ships on the waters After 1 year of siege, Rhasos himself was killed, and the city fell into the hands of Agamemnon. The prophecy from God, prophesied by the oracle of Dionysus, was fulfilled. From the noble men of the city, the only one who survived was Ini, who did not kneel before King Rhasos. He was a king because he remained faithful to the true God. He led in the sea the remaining of the citizens of Tyre, Troy, with 5 ships. He headed towards the south, passed by the island of Kaftor, and continued toward west until he reached the island of Sicily, and he established there himself and his descendants. From him God raised again generations of noble Thracians in the whole Italian peninsula, the ones who remained faithful to Tyre. Chapter 13. And the Rhodope mountains from the sacred posterity of Meros to the priests of God Dionysus in Pere. A remarkable boy was born, of whom God had prophesied through the oracle in the temple long before his conception, with the words, "A great son shall be born in Thrace, son of the mighty Orphe, and son of the eternal covenant. And this boy shall bring about the rise and fall of many among the peoples, and he shall restore the divine covenant of his fathers to his people, the covenant which Rhesos broke, and the descendants have forgotten. All shall listen to him. The tribes of Thrace, the people of Hellas, the Persians, the Egyptians, the tribes of Sicilia, Lydia, Pamphylia, and even all the way to Phoenicia, Bactria, and India, and all of the animals on the earth, even the heavenly birds, and every tree and every stone shall answer to his call. For upon him my might shall rest, and he shall carry out my will. He shall glorify my name, the name of the god Dian of Thrace, the sun-giving Isus in all the land. And because of him, all the tribes shall once again speak of Orphe and my covenant before the great day of our Lord. And when the boy was born, they called him Get, because he was kinsman of the Getae. And when he was 7 years old, his father initiated him into the priesthood in the temple, and he received the divine nature, the Holy Spirit. He gave him the holy name, Orpheoso, because this is how it was prophesied about him, that he would be a great son of Orphe. And this is how he was remembered for all time by the name Orpheus. And when he came of age, according to Thracian custom, Orpheus decided to head out and travel the wide world to accomplish feats for God and the people of Thrace, and to earn a
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody, a song lasts
Forever. Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio? Just download the app to your smart car, smartphone, or smart TV and get the best of TFR wherever you are.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
COVID-19, 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 COVID-19. I'll blow the wind of God from the state of Washington to the state of Maine, Brownsville, Texas, and the tip of Florida. Today, we speak to this atmosphere. Today, burn this thing. This virus hates heat. You just burn this thing. Burn! Burn! I call for a supernatural heat wave straight out of hell. Burn! Burn! COVID-19! 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 I'll blow the wind of God. Get up! I heard the Lord say this to me several weeks ago. Kenneth, what? You believe me for a heat wave? I walked out in my backyard. I speak to this atmosphere. I call for a strong south wind. I call for a supernatural heat wave straight out of hell. Burn! Burn! COVID-19! 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 I'll blow the wind of God. Hey, in May, it hit triple digits. Hey, in May, a supernatural heat wave. Hey, in May, a supernatural heat wave straight out of hell. Burn! Burn! Oh, I'm telling you, it gets hot down there. It have a hot down there, man. Turn the air conditioner. It gets hot down there. Hot fire. Man, it's hot. Oh, Lord. My goodness, it's hot.
Thank you everybody for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.